They say pleasure is the reward. But what if it's the disguise? What if the chocolate, the scrolling, the lust, the laughter are just shadows cleverly dressed, masking something far more primitive, far more painful? When was the last time you felt truly full, without needing something more? Not just entertained or distracted, but deeply at peace. We live in a time overflowing with pleasure, yet we are starving. Carl Jung once warned that what we chase for comfort often keeps us from healing. And perhaps, for the first time, you're beginning to see that pleasure may not be what you thought it was. Think about your mornings. You wake up and check your phone before you even think. No emergency, no purpose, just habit. A quick video makes you smile, then it's gone. Another, then another. Hours pass, the day disappears, but the ache remains. Maybe you eat something sweet, salty, or both. Then guilt comes. You weren't even hungry, you were just needing. But what you needed wasn't food, it wasn't dopamine. It was silence, escape, a breath from a storm you've never named. Jung believed every person carries a shadow, a hidden self we avoid by chasing pleasure. And pleasure is the shovel we use to bury that self. When you eat without hunger, scroll without curiosity, or desire without love, you're not seeking joy, you're numbing pain. The truth is, most pleasure isn't real pleasure. It's just a momentary escape from self-awareness. But every time you choose it, you deepen your hunger for what's real. And when you don't get it, you feel broken. But you're not broken. You've just been taught to confuse escape with enjoyment. The pleasure you seek is often just a symptom of your avoidance. Go back for a moment. You're 6 years old. You cry, and no one listens. So you learn, feeling bad gets you nothing. But when you smile, perform, distract yourself, people like you, that reward sticks, and you repeat it into adulthood. Now your pain becomes silent, but your pleasures grow loud. Louder than your fears, louder than your loneliness, louder than the child inside you who just wanted to be held. Pleasure has memory. Every time you use it to silence your pain, your body forgets how to be still. That's why silence feels punishing. That's why you need music in the shower. That's why you can't be alone. Jung saw this misuse of pleasure not as evil but as tragic. Because when pleasure becomes our way to avoid ourselves, it robs us of growth. Now, imagine a person lost in the desert, chasing mirages. Every time they think they've found water, it disappears. But they keep running, believing the next one will be real. That's what modern pleasure is. Distraction dressed as relief. Real pleasure, the kind that feeds your soul, is different. It's quiet. It expands you rather than numbs you. It lives in presence, not performance. It's found in deep conversation, in finishing something that scared you, in waking up and realizing you no longer crave the thing that used to control you. But most people don't crave that kind of pleasure because it's not easy. Yet it's the only kind that's real. You were taught from childhood to numb pain with pleasure. You scraped your knee and were handed a cookie. You cried and were shown cartoons. So your brain learned, pain is weakness, feeling is failure, and the answer is pleasure. You became fluent in distraction. You stopped saying, I'm not okay, and started smiling instead. But every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you lose connection with your true self. Jung said that when the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder, and pleasure is the loudest thing in our world today. The scroll, the ping, the binge, they scream so we don't have to listen. But what are we not listening to? The ache, the loneliness, the quiet need to belong, the unspoken pain of being unseen. Pleasure is not the enemy, but when it replaces presence, it becomes poison. Have you ever felt guilty after pleasure? After one more episode, one more message, one more snack? That guilt isn't shame. It's your soul whispering you weren't fed. You just avoided the hunger. Shadow work isn't about becoming darker. It's about becoming honest. It's saying to the parts of yourself you've hidden, I see you, and I choose truth over escape. Take the story of someone who couldn't stop chasing relationships. They said they were in love with love, but every time it ended the same: intensity, obsession, crash. What they really loved wasn't love, it was distraction, because when they were alone, the silence hurt too much. They didn't know how to sit with their wounds. So pleasure became a bandage until it no longer worked. This isn't rare. Millions live this cycle, confusing longing with love, scrolling with joy, numbing with healing. The danger isn't in the pleasure itself, it's in never questioning why we need it. Pleasure is not healing. It's not peace. It's not power. It's a tool. And when tools are misused, they cause harm. But there is another way. Think of the last time you resisted a craving. Maybe you didn't send that message, didn't scroll, didn't snack. And later, you felt proud. Why? Because discipline isn't about control. It's about trust, self-trust. And trust is the real high. When you trust yourself, pleasure no longer owns you. You choose it with intention. That's when it becomes beautiful. Not a chain, but a celebration. Now imagine walking into a silent room. No distractions, just you. And instead of panic, you feel peace. Not because you have everything, but because you are everything. That's what Jung meant by wholeness. Not perfection, but integration. Being with yourself and liking who you're with. You don't get there by chasing highs. You get there by turning down the volume of distraction and listening to what it's been covering up. It means pausing before grabbing your phone and asking, what am I avoiding? It means sitting with your loneliness without patching it with sugar, sex, or scrolling. It means choosing the slow, meaningful kind of pleasure, the kind that takes effort, intention, and presence. Because the deepest pleasure isn't instant. It's earned. The best laugh is with someone you trust. The best meal follows a day of meaningful effort. The best connection is born from being seen, not swiped. And if this message stirred something in you, good. Awakening isn't loud, it's quiet. Not dramatic, but decisive. Will you keep numbing the ache, or will you finally meet yourself with courage? Jung believed that our struggles aren't caused by trauma itself, but by our refusal to face what it left behind. And pleasure, when used unconsciously, guarantees we never face it. Now that you see it, what will you do? You've seen the signs, felt the recognition, watched the mask slip. And now comes the truth. You've betrayed yourself. Not once, but in tiny ways every day. Every time you said it, just one more scroll. Every time you distracted instead of listened. Every time you called it happiness when it was really sedation. But this isn't shame, it's clarity. You weren't weak. You were surviving. But now, you're ready to live. Once you understand that most pleasure was never joy but escape, the cravings begin to fade. The party feels empty. The scroll feels hollow. The sugar stops satisfying. Because what you were missing wasn't stimulation, it was you. Imagine your life as a house. Inside, your wounded child waits. But instead of going inside, you build lights and music outside. You throw a party on the lawn while your truth waits inside, unseen. That's what unchecked pleasure does. It turns your life into a carnival so you never go within. But healing is different. Healing is walking through the door, sitting in silence and saying to yourself, I'm here now. You can speak. That's what Jung meant by real inner work. Not avoiding stillness, but becoming unafraid of it. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of everything we've been running from. Now here's the final myth to break. You were told pleasure is the goal. That happiness means feeling good. That freedom means indulging every desire. But real freedom isn't doing what you want. It's not needing to. True pleasure isn't in the chocolate, the scrolling, the dopamine hits. True pleasure is the moment you realize you don't need them anymore. You can sit with yourself and smile. Not because it's empty, but because it's whole. You stop chasing highs because you carry peace and people notice. You move slower, you speak softer, you laugh less, but deeper. And when they ask, oh, why don't you drink? Why don't you post? Why don't you reply instantly? You smile. Because you're no longer avoiding anything. You are simply present. That's what frightens the world. Because when someone no longer needs pleasure to feel okay, they become powerful. Undistracted, unmanipulable, immune to marketing, immune to addiction, because presence has returned, and presence is the most radical act of all. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you are is not a slave to cravings. You are not a dopamine addict. You are not a consumer of feelings. You are a creator of meaning, and meaning isn't always pleasurable. In fact, it rarely is. It's demanding. It's inconvenient, but it is real. and it will feed you in ways pleasure never could. So the next time the craving hits, pause, not to punish yourself, not to shame yourself, but to ask, what do I truly need right now? That question alone could change your life. It breaks the loop. It gives you the pen. It reminds you, you are not your hunger. You are the one who chooses how to feed it. And that's why you'll never see pleasure the same again. Not because it's wrong, but because now you see it clearly. You'll still laugh, still enjoy the beauty of life. But now you'll do it consciously, and that awareness will protect you. From trading your peace for temporary comfort, it will make your joy sacred, your relationships cleaner, your habits stronger, and your silence golden. Because the pleasure you no longer have to chase is the only kind worth having.